Alright guys, so here's the next project on the little truck. This is a Pro Comp level lift. It's supposed to be 2 3/4 inches. It's not very much at all. The front everything remains the same, and the back is recommended that you replace the rear strut since it's going to be a little higher. The rear shock, excuse me. So I already got a shock absorber from a 2020 Tacoma TRD. Which is the one I need because it has the extra length that is required after you lift the truck a little bit. I always like to cut these things. I do not like to leave them tied together, even though you can remove them all together. But I'm afraid that if they might end up, somehow in the water or something, that a little animal might get caught on it. So I'll always make sure I cut the straps. I love animals, so just in case there's a small chance that an animal might get caught on it, that's why I make sure I cut them up. All right, so pretty straightforward. We have first of all, we got the instructions. This is for the 05 to 11 Tacoma 5 log 2-wheel drive, which is what I have. This would not work on the 6 log, so you got to make sure you get the kit for the 6 log if that's the one you want. But this is the part number in case you're interested on the kit for the 5 log 65660 KS in kilo for the 05 to 11 Tacoma 5 log 2-wheel drive. This thing that it doesn't rain on me. Little stickers, little bolts to hold the brackets for the idle lift. Here's the spacers, the ones that go on the front. But you can see it. This is what's gonna give, and it's nowhere near 2 1/4 inches, but that's what's supposed to give you. The total lift is supposed to be 2 3/4, and it comes with the little nuts for it. These are the lifts for the rear. But you can see it. I have to say I'm very impressed. This is pretty nice. These are the new U-bolts that you will need to be able to attach for the rear. Alright guys, I'm very impressed with everything in here. Alright, I have everything prepped to be able to install the lift on it. First thing I'm going to start doing is removing the brackets that hold the sensor for the ABS. That's just a 10mm. And I'm used to like remove the bolt and I put it exactly where it was. That way I don't lose it or misplace it. Just makes it easier for putting it together. This one right over here behind it. Alright, now I'm going to remove the sensor, which is this one right over here. This is a tiny little screwdriver. You have to lift the little clip in the center and pull it at the same. There it goes. Alright. Once I have this out of the way for the sensor, I push it out of the way. Don't want to mess with it. Right, next thing I remove is going to be the sway bar link bush mount over here. Since this spins, you have to hold it on the bottom. It's a 14mm. Pretty straightforward. Put the nut back in, the bushing and everything just like the way it was. That way when I install it, I have everything right there ready to go. Alright, now next thing will be the brake line. Has a bolt over here, a bracket holding it right over here. That one's pretty tight, I guess. Just need a little persuasion. Alright, so now it has more room to play because you're going to be dropping the spin, letting all these move so you can remove the shock and spring assembly. Removed it and put the bolt right back on there. Alright, next I'm going to loosen the 3 bolts that are nuts that are on top of the shock absorber, shock tower. This one's in there pretty tight, but there's not a whole lot of room on the top, so just got an extension and use it almost like a breaker bar. There we go. That's 1, 2. Here. Wow, that was tight. Alright, the next bolt I'm going to loosen, remove is the one from the bottom of the shock absorber. That one is a size 19. I try to place the bolts on the floor the way that I removed them, that when I put them back together, just to make sure that I have them exactly the same way they were before. Alright, now I'm going to remove the 2 bolts on the upper control that hold the upper control side, upper control arm, which is this one right over here and that one over there. You have to be careful with this brake line. With the other one, it was a little too close. This one, I pushed it back a little bit. Make sure you don't hit it. Alright, so now I have the upper control completely loose. Everything else is disconnected on it. So the only thing that is holding it right now, I put this cable so the whole spindle will not drop as much. Now that I have everything loose, the only thing that is holding the shock absorber assembly with the spring is 2 bolts on the top, 2 nuts on the top. So I'm going to go ahead and remove those ones. Then I'll be able to remove the shock absorber assembly. And there it is. Alright guys, so here's the shock absorber assembly. Everything else out here is disconnected. And I try to be careful so when you pull, something is not going to damage something else. Like the brake line is loose, the sensor for the ABS is also loose. Make sure you don't lose those little nuts over here. They go for the upper control arm. Alright, so now the next thing is going to be the This assembly has one bolt that's significantly longer than the others, so this one has to be cut to the same size as this other ones. Before cutting it, it's recommended that you install a nut all the way, so that after you cut it, the nut is going to clean the burrs after you cut it, and then you should be okay. So let me go ahead and I'm gonna go ahead and cut that now. Okay, I already measured the stud and marked it. Now I'm gonna go ahead and cut it. After I cut it, I put up an abrasive blade on it. Alright, so now what I'm going to do is clean up the edges of the stud. So once it's done, it looks like that. So now I use the nut to be able to clean the threads on it. The more you rock it back and forth, the easier it is. So there it is. To be able to install it, now it goes back in. Alright guys, this is the part that is very, to me, the most challenging from doing the front. The instructions said that you have to rotate the upper part of the shock assembly 120 degrees. Well, I did that. I already started working on the other side. So this is the second side already. I did that with the other side, and even though I measured 120 degrees, for some reason it just did not work out. So what I ended up doing to be able to make sure that it fit, I checked the location, see it has 3 studs on the upper part. So what I ended up doing, the one that goes to the back here, I put a little piece of 2 pieces of tape. So when I rotate this, I'm going to put the spacer for the lip on it, and make sure that one of the studs is facing this way, exactly like the way this one is. That way I can make sure that is going to be on there properly. What I use to compress this spring is this little spring compressor that I rented from one auto parts store close by. So let me show you how I do it. By the way, this can be very, very dangerous. I heard people hurting themselves really bad if a spring lets go. But in this case, I'm not removing completely the spring. All I'm doing is compressing it, loosening up the upper nut so that I can rotate the plate, and then put the plate over it so that I can make sure that it's facing one of the yellow marks over here. Alright, now comes the part they have to loosen up the nut. You have to hold the center. Wow, that's on there tight. Oh wow, that was tight. All right, once you break it loose, the nut is not be, I'm not removing the nut all the way. I'm loosening it so that I can rotate the upper plate. Alright, so it's loose enough so that I can rotate the upper plate. Hoping you can see. Alright, so now I'm get this out of the way. Wow, it's still too tight. I have to compress the springs a little more. It's still too tight. There's too much tension. Okay, now it's loose enough that I can see the plate moving. I can move the plate. See? Go ahead and position the camera. Alright guys, so now I have this thing, the plate loose enough so that I can move it, rotate it. So what I'm going to do, here I have the mark, and this is the other piece of tape that I have. The stud over here has to, this stud has to be in that direction. So if I mark it, if I mount it like this, it's not there. So what I have to do is I'm going to rotate it until it's aligned perfectly with the yellow tape. You see? Alright guys, I hope that makes sense. All I did, the plate is loose. This thing is still holding the side assembly, but it's loose. I hope this helps someone because this was a little pain in the butt to figure it out. This stud is still facing the little piece of tape, so I know it's in the right location to be able to mount it. Alright, so now I'm going to loosening up the spring. And hopefully that part of the job will be done. There it is. It's rotated to the right location, and I know it's facing the stud is facing the yellow tape. And before putting everything back together, I make sure I test it, and I put it in the truck before even putting the nuts, just to make sure that it's going to be bolting onto it. Alright guys, now I'm just going to put a light coat of paint on the bottom. The shock absorber is a little rough looking, so I'm going to go ahead and spray. I'm not sure if you'll be able to, if you'll be able to come out, but not sure you can see, but just a nice little coat, light coat, and it makes it look pretty much a whole lot nicer. Not to mention protects it. Here are both of the shock assemblies. After a light coat of paint, it comes out pretty nice. And here's the upper plate adapter. Not adapter, but a spacer installed. Looks pretty good. I just have to remove the yellow tape and install them.